Great. So I had the pleasure of working with Monique this past, I guess we started probably in December, maybe in November, planning this workshop. We just wanted to talk to you a little bit about our experience. First, some introductions. My name is Molly Cashion. I'm a program manager with the Sustainability Teachers Academy. My colleague Rob McGeehee was also really integral to this project that we put together. So yeah, and what I do with the Teachers Academy here at ASU is we create and develop professional development opportunities for K through 12 teachers in sustainability science and practice. And this was the first collaboration that we have with the CAP LTER and Monique, and it was wonderful. Monique, I don't know if you need to reintroduce yourself, but I'm super happy to be here today with Monique presenting about this workshop.
Awesome. Well, it's me again. So it's a great thing I can't see your faces because then I won't know if you actually laugh at my jokes. But Jenny, Molly,
I'll laugh at your jokes.
Facilitators, y'all have to laugh. Make me feel good. I'm just kidding. So y'all know I am previously a teacher. I've always been a teacher. And so for me with the education and outreach, really what I wanted to do was make sure that, those concerns that I had as a teacher, those ways that I felt, that I was in this position supporting teachers who were also feeling that way. And especially thinking about the situation that teachers are in right now, I thought it was extremely important to make sure that at the forefront we're with the teachers' need. So that kind of started our collaboration here with the Teachers College. Oh, let's see if I can skip here. There we go. Awesome. Oh, so before we get started, I'm jumping the gun here. I'm going to share a few things. I have two laptops going on. So if y'all, if you see me looking away, I'm not, trying to be rude. I'm just multitasking. But I wanted to go ahead and share, if you'd like to follow along with some of the material we'll be sharing. This is a hyperdoc. This is something that we use with teachers. Y'all should have access to it. If you're like, whatever, I'm just here to check it out. You don't have to use it, but I know it's convenient to have all those resources in one place. And so I wanted to share that with you. And then also to serve as an example of the type of material that we use. And before we move forward, I do want to acknowledge that we are in the process of formulating a land acknowledgement. And so I don't want to just say one and be disrespectful in that I haven't formed those connections with those communities, with those tribal members. And so what I will say is just acknowledging that we are on stolen land and that to give thanks to the ancestors that have allowed us to be here. Yeah, so what I will share next is just some resources you can use if you have not, if you do not know the land, the tribes that occupy the land you live on, you can find that resource there. And then also a guide for land acknowledgement. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on.
Thanks, Monique. Yeah, so we wanted to talk a little bit. One of the first things that we did in trying to form this workshop, and it's really great. We're talking a lot about collaborations, and our objective is to collaborate with the teachers, but I've also been really impressed with the collaborations that have taken place internally with Monique and the CAP LTER system. But the first thing that we did is create some objectives. What are the things that we wanted to get out of this? And I think with Monique's help from being a teacher herself, and then also having all of these great contacts still that are still teachers, especially during the pandemic, being able to help put together these resources, and then also taking into consideration some of the feedback that we've gotten at the Teachers Academy. We've had the chance to train probably, I think it's around 200 teachers over the past year within the pandemic. And so taking into consideration their feedback and developing these online workshops, I think between the two of us, we had some pretty good insights. So here are some of the things that we wanted to do for planting the seeds of our collaboration. We for sure wanted to equip teachers to integrate sustainability practices and projects. Projects is a really important part of the work with the Teachers Academy because we want to make sure that we're keeping things action-based, because sustainability, as you know, kind of can get a little dreary sometimes. So having that action focus is really important. We also want to promote place-based ecological and sustainability education. We have found that place-based education is integral in having students care about the place that they are, both geographically, and culturally. So these are a couple of things that we wanted to bring to the workshop.
And to add to place-based, it makes education equitable because you're allowing the students to really talk about a place that they're familiar with. And so when we talk about, being equitable in education, place-based learning is such a great way to do so, especially in a learning environment where you can really gear it towards, activities that kids can do in their own space. So as Molly mentioned, with my work as a teacher, really helped to support this effort in that, I was familiar with state standards, and I was familiar with different science organizations within Arizona, and I joined those organizations to make sure that I was staying up to date with teacher needs. So part of planting the seeds of collaboration, something that was important was being in that community. And so for me, if I'm trying to tell science teachers how to teach, I should probably know what science teachers are being asked to teach. And so for me, it was really important for me to be a part of Arizona Department of Education, National Science Teacher Association, STEMAZE, Arizona Science Teacher Association. And because I was a part of that, I was able to hear, what are teachers saying to me? What are they telling me that they need? What am I hearing? Especially in the environment that we are with teaching right now. I also want to point out that at the top right, or at the top, it might be at the right or the left, there is a number. So if you are following along in that document, that number is going to correlate with this section on that document. So in case you want to follow along with the links, I'm also going to be sharing that. So right now I'm going to go ahead and share some of those links to those amazing science organizations here in Arizona that are doing incredible work, holding webinars, free webinars, and really supporting teachers as we make this shift, like Natasha and Sarah had just mentioned, from the knowing of science to the doing.
Absolutely. And so together, let's see, I can't remember. Oh yeah, we did this one together.
Yeah. So next we're talking about the conditions for collaborative sprouts. And so what we're talking about here is that when we were in this workshop, what were those conditions that we created that allow collaboration to occur? And so down below, you can see some examples of the way that we held the technology and resources we integrated within our workshop in order to support teachers, one, and two, to really support or to encourage collaboration. And so this picture here, can you all see my point? Oh, okay, perfect. Just checking. I don't know why I asked, like I can see, well, I can see Molly.
I got you.
Make sure you're paying attention. I'm just kidding. So this first one here is that hyperdoc. So up here in the corner where that number is, for instance, in number 3, it would have those links that we shared in this slide here. And so really this hyperdoc one, it was a living document that allowed participants to be able to refer back to. It included presentations, all the resources we used, examples. We also used a technology piece called Jamboard, and we did this in order to help to support teachers in one, making that shift and showing how we're going from those 5E model that Natasha and Sarah talked about. So here, this is what we call a driving question board. And so what the students do is they start by creating those questions and talking about, what am I looking, this phenomena that I'm looking at, what is it telling me? And then they create these questions. And then what they do is they categorize these questions. And then once those questions are categorized, you talk about, can you investigate it? Can you not investigate it? And so then what the students are doing is they are developing their learning path. And so what's really great is, as teachers, really you're doing the work. The teachers are doing the work in that they're creating a scenario, identifying a phenomena in which they're saying, okay, I know these questions are going to come up. So really, the teacher is the orchestrator behind it. However, those students are really engaged because they think that they're driving their learning, and in a sense they are. And so another resource that we use was this discussion diamond. And so teachers were, if you're familiar with expert groups, so each of these corners represented a different expertise, and you can see the different colors here. And so they use Jamboard to then explore these different topics like surface temperature and vegetation versus rural or urban areas. And so when they came back together, each of these teachers had a knowledge to contribute to the conversation. So again, bringing in those pieces, those conditions for collaborative sprouts. So these are some of the examples we use. And so if you're following the HyperDoc link, in number 3, you can find those resources there, and I'll also share them in the chat if you were like, I don't really care too much about that HyperDoc. Molly, what were some other ways that we offered conditions for collaborative sprouts, would you say?
Yeah, we also had a lot of discussion groups. So one of the things, first of all, like I just want to commend Monique publicly for the organization and pulling this off technologically, because it was phenomenal. It was pretty seamless. We had a couple of teachers that struggled, but like for the most part, super seamless in order to get this stuff done. So whenever we had these like expert groups and then they had to transfer and do these things in a Jamboard, we basically used a jigsaw. So for those teachers who are familiar, you break students up and then to different categories, and then they come together in another group and go back to their home group. So this provides a ton of collaboration time. You might be wondering, how did you do this in a virtual environment? Ask Monique, she crushed it. But the other part of it is we really wanted to have some really deep discussions on environmental justice and social justice, especially as it relates to the urban heat island. So for the second portion, we had things that were geared more towards adult learners and very kind of long, in-depth discussion questions that related to some readings that we had the teachers do beforehand. So we made sure and had some extra time for the teachers to get to know each other and really dive deeply into these questions of justice. And then, with these discussion groups, we also each group had a facilitator in them. So we were able to kind of build these relationships with teachers as the facilitator in these groups. Yep. And then we also had a survey. We don't have a ton of time left here, but I will say we had a survey that Monique put together for us to kind of key into what the teachers learn and what they wanted to kind of learn more about. So we're going to start with some of the things that they wanted to be improved. They wanted more aligned units and lessons with student accommodations, and we saw specifically stuff about special ed modification and more in-depth lesson plans. They also wanted access to local database and phenomena, and steps for community action planning. So we talked about action, but one of the things that we could do to improve is provide action planning steps, which is something that the Teachers Academy has, as well as there's 1,000 other resources for action planning. Keep in mind, this was a 3-hour workshop. And they also wanted more collaborative opportunities, which is so funny because we probably lectured 15 minutes, 20 minutes out of the whole 3-hour session. But it just shows that teachers, especially in isolation, are really craving these opportunities for interaction. Yeah.
So this survey was so important for us to know how are we tending, how are we working on, when we're collaborating, how are we tending to those needs. And so it was awesome to get this feedback from the teachers so we know how to move forward. So I'm just going to put these up here. I call these the collaborative flowers. And so these pieces were things that stuck with me that I was like, oh, this is so sweet. I'm extra critical of myself. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that workshop was a mess. And so when I saw these, oh my goodness, it was so great. So I'll just leave these up for a few seconds for y'all to read.
And one of the things I'll just say real quickly about some of this stuff, the first one in particular about the engagement strategies, one of the things that I think was a real key piece of the workshop is that we not only had content, right? We had the Urban Heat Island content, but we paired it with teaching tools. So even if teachers knew about one of them, they were learning something about the other one. So it's not just what they were learning, but how they were learning throughout the workshop.
Yes, and it was awesome because, we took those needs of the teachers, which I want more resources to teach digitally. I want connected to standards. I wanted to model the shifts in science teaching. And so we took those and we implemented, and we got such a positive feedback. And that just goes to show how important it is to hear the community that you're serving, their voice, and say, what do they need? How am I meeting the community where they are at? So I absolutely love this.
And I got to say, Monique put that one slide about how we can improve first, but That was like the majority of the survey was overwhelmingly positive.
That's just me.
I know. Great. So here we have, let's see, we're probably running over. Oh, Monique, this one's you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So then for the collaborative fruits,
Oh,
what we're talking about here is that, you know, what are we doing next? You know, what is the fruit of this workshop? What did we get from this? How do we move forward with this? And so these were some really great, again, just some bits from the survey that told us that we were on the right track and that there's so much more room so much more work to do with educators.
Yeah, and we'll give you a couple minutes to read this, but we had kind of some like really broad categories here. There were things that they wanted more locally, that teachers want more. They want more opportunities like this, which is really encouraging, especially for both of us in our programs. They also want more in terms of sustainability and environmental justice work. And they specifically want more about action. What do we do not only in our classrooms, but how do we take this even further into communities, into policies, to legislators? So I think that's about it for, go ahead, Monique.
And I was just going to say, and as a teacher, you know, coming away, having experiences from workshops, I would often come away and say, how am I going to use this? And so to get this feedback and to really listen to the teachers and to know that the approach that we took led by the teachers, much in the way that the shift is happening where students are leading the learning, it was so powerful to see how the work and ways in which teachers are dedicated even during this time to include these topics like sustainability, environmental justice, and all these different, you know, ecology and whatnot. So it was fantastic. So for the last thing, I'm just going to share, you may have noticed some really awesome pictures throughout the slide. And so there are some really incredible organizations I've been partnering with in South Phoenix that I've been doing the work. And so these are some really great organizations if you have time to check it out. And all those photos come from the Spaces of Opportunity down in South Phoenix, which is a community space that is so incredible. So that's us for today. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks.